Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Ed to order. The emergency exits to the right and the left. Taylor, will you please call the roll?
Robert Tobin.
Here.
James Mooney.
Present.
William Wall.
Here.
Krista Barringer. Here. Christine Bellarosa. Here. Susan Gage. Here. Raymond McClary.
Here.
Scott Colston. Here. Timothy Wells.
Thank you. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 8th and December 6th, 2022. Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Gage. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Student rep report, Eva.
The SCORE store continues to support families in our community. For more information can be found on the senior high website and press activities for the free store. Families can see store hours and order forms. Vet Zero, a not-for-profit organization, visited our 10th grade global classes. A group of young veterans came and spoke to the students about their personal experiences and answered questions in honor of Veterans Day. A big thank you to Sawyer Motors for putting together the Sal Voice concert. Proceeds went directly to funding programs throughout the district. The senior high had its first band concert with a new band director, Mr. Joe. The concert was a huge success. The art department displayed student artwork and shared a common theme of resilience. Science Olympiad got the results for the virtual tournament on December 3rd. Out of 76 schools from across the country, we came in first for trajectory and second for scrambler. Huge accomplishment for Zach Feinberg and Ian Vickery, who competed in those events. We have 2 competitions left before regionals. Fingers crossed we make it to states this year.
Thank you. Mr. Reinhardt, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you. Are we on? Excellent. Thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge some of the amazing work by our students. 95% of our athletes were the Mahal Academic Award. We also had, as far as from our music department, we had 6 students go to Area All-State Festival November 18th and 19th. Katie Nowitzki, Sarah Mangione, Caitlin Brennan, Alexa Schulte, Grace Hopp, and I hope I don't say this wrong. If I do, I apologize, Amaya Karube. And also on December 1 through 4, in Rochester, the All-State Festival, Katie Nowitzki scored a perfect 100 at NISMA, and Sarah Mangione scored a perfect 100 as well. And I think Dan's going to put up some artwork for me. The New York State Art Teachers Association sponsored artwork exhibit back October 27th through the 29th. And 3 of Miss Black's Cahill students, their pictures were picked. The one you're looking at right now, what's called a abstract dog collage. Go ahead, Dan, thanks. And this one selected, this was Nora Ferber. She was grade 3 at Cahill. This is Echoes of a Silhouette. And the last one was grade 6, was an Earth Day collage by a 6th grade student at Cahill, so we want to acknowledge those. And then also, I think Ms. DeFino is going to give us an update on our amazing Science Olympiad and how they did.
Do you want me to stand over here or over here?
The microphone is there.
Okay, I'm loud too. I have 2 of our winning Science Olympians here today, which is awesome. So we've started our season with a great couple competitions. Here are some photos from our recent competition at Cornell University. And if you go to the next slide, we have all of the different things that we've won so far. If you've never heard of Science Olympiad, it's kind of like a track meet for science and engineering. So students compete in 23 different events. And I'm happy to report, as of December 3rd, we are now a nationally ranked team. As Ava told us before, yes, awesome. We had some really big wins wins in our most recent competition. So Zach and Ian came in first place in the trajectory event and second place in the scrambler event. Do you guys want to explain what those are?
Well, you did most of the work for Scrambler, so if you want to talk about that one first.
The Scrambler is just a event. You have to launch a car with a falling weight towards a wall with an egg on the front of the car. You have to get the lowest time possible to the wall, and you have to stop as close to the wall as possible. So it's kind of a mix of both what you try to achieve. So we did second in that.
And then trajectory is an event that you have to build a device that can launch a projectile, generally a tennis ball or racquetball, towards a specified target. The target can be of varying distances or varying heights, so you have to learn the physics to be able to know what angles it's going to be landing at the target at. And for my device, I built a crossbow-like design, which is very unique compared to a lot of the other teams, and it seems to have worked out quite well.
We also placed in 7th for the detector event, so that was creating a force mass sensor that can detect up to 1,000 grams. We came in 8th place in anatomy and physiology. And this was all against 77 schools from across the country, so really, really exciting stuff. On the next slide, just some of our upcoming competitions. So we will be out near Syracuse this weekend at another invitational. We have an invitational in the Albany region in January. And then the really big competition that determines if we go to states or not this year is on February 4th at John Jay High School. So we're really hoping we make it to states this year. And we're hoping to establish a B division team in the future that would be for grades 6 through 12. Thank you so much.
Good evening, and welcome to Morris Elementary School. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, so before we get into the full level of our presentation, and for those of you who hadn't had the opportunity to visit Morris during the day when all the action is, we have a little video to give you a taste of our community here. Mr. Ursig? That's just a little taste, and anyone who wants to come for any of our exciting days, Board of Education, you're always welcome, and it does that whenever you try to switch slides. So the next slide talks about intentional thinking, intentional planning, and intentional action. This is how we start every meeting that we have at Morse, and it's taking it one step beyond knowing that we have to think, plan, and act, that we have to do that with intention. So this has been the start to every single meeting and the start to the conversations we have. Within that, we have 4 kind of buckets of focus. The first is data and growth, and using that data to ensure we're doing the right things for kids at the right time, and we're course correcting when we have to. Community engagement is very near and dear to my heart as a former music educator. We're so excited that we're at the point that we're able to bring our school and community back together for learning experiences. Student voice is also very important. I believe passionately that students shouldn't be passive in their education. They need to be active participants, which means they both need to learn how to use their voice and then actively use their voice to shape what's happening in their time here and beyond. And finally, we have a vibrant student support program. And what this does is it ensures that all of our students have whatever they need to succeed wherever they are in their journey. So we're going to jump right into the data first. This is our last year's iReady, starting with math. So we start with last year, just so we can see the growth that's happened and give some historical perspective. In the world of iReady, green is good. So you want to see growth, you want to see the green section get larger and the red section to get smaller. This is the highest level of data that we look at in the iReady system. So as you can see on the left, in September, we had 9% of our students on grade level. And through the diligent work of the staff, I can't take credit for it because I wasn't here, but the diligent work of our staff and students, we went from 9% of our students on grade level to the end of the year, 54% of our students on grade level. Obviously, still work to go, but we celebrate growth and we celebrate movement, and that's amazing. The other side of that is we had 31% who are our highest at risk, 2 or more grade levels below. And that went from 31% of our students down to 10. So we're seeing those students are moving forward. So we're excited to see that and to continue that work. If you go to the next slide, iReady is great because you can just keep digging and zooming down deeper into the data. So as we zoom in, you can see that iReady will actually divide it out into 5 different sections. And again, it keeps that red, yellow, and green because it's the traffic light and it's easy to remember. What we can see here when we get down to this level, that we have, in the beginning in September, we actually had no students who were starting mid or above, and we had 8% who were early, and those numbers moved to 32% who at the end of the year were mid or above, and 22% who were at early level, which means we ended up from 8% of students in the green by the end of the year to 54% of students in the green. And then similarly in the red, we started with the 31 and came down to 10, but we're able to look at that deeper, seeing that 23% were 2 grade levels below, but we also had 5% that were more than that. So being able to look at this information at this level helps us get further information. The next thing we're looking at is starting to compare historically, because we're going to start doing long-term goal setting and goal planning. So the top is September 2021. The bottom is September 2022, so it's this year. And what we're seeing is that we're going to start with the red. We're seeing that there's some consistency here. 31% were in that red zone. In 2021, 32%, so statistically pretty close. So we're maintaining that. So we're trying to figure out how to address that section so we have more kids starting in a better place. If we look on the other side, in September 2021, we had 8% who were already in that green zone at grade level. This year, we got to start with 13%, so we're seeing modest growth there. And this will all play into our BLT goals that we'll discuss later. The final level of drilling down that I'm going to show you here is that we can look at not just how kids are doing overall as a score, but we can look down to the concepts. And this again lets us know where within math. It's not just we need to work on math, but we look at this and we see that geometry is one of our challenge areas. By doing this and drilling down, we can again have that really focused data-driven supports for our students, and also data-driven celebrations. Now what we don't show you here is that our school staff can go down to the class level and student level. So it can get really personal, which is how education should be. Our next slide, this I'll go a little quicker because it's iReady, so it's the same format but for reading. So what we're seeing at this highest level is that over the course of last year growth-wise, for our green, we went from 26 to 60, which is a huge growth in reading. And our reds came down from 30% of students 2 or more grade levels below to 14. So some really nice growth, again, attributed to the instruction and the hard work of our students last year. We're looking at this here again, the 5 levels, and it's the same type of growth. You can just see it with more detail, seeing how many students are 2 grade levels below, 3 grade levels below, and that division of the green, how many students are at the end or middle versus the beginning of that grade level. So again, we're able to look at same information from the pyramid chart, just with more detail. Next, we're gonna look and do, again, our comparison for long-term growing. What we're seeing in reading is our greens and reds right now are staying kind of consistent. It was 26 last year and it was 26 this year in green. When we look at the red, we had a little growth. We had 30% in 2021 and we're to 28. So we know that this isn't moving as much, so we need to figure out what we need to do. So again, around long-term goals, you have to start with good data so you can come up with a good plan. And then finally, it again allowing us to drill down not just to ELA and reading, but to the specific contents. And again, and having this information is going to help us serve kids best. As we move on to our next area that we are looking to focus on this year is community engagement. Again, I'll reiterate, we're so glad that we can bring our school and community together. Some of the things that have happened so far is we've had our open house, and out of our 305 students enrolled at Morris Elementary, we had 227 of them represented at our open house. So we were very glad to open our doors to that. We had our parent-teacher conferences where we had 72 unique families, and we know that many of our families have more than one student there that night. And then many of our staff went above and beyond for families that night was not convenient to ensure that they were provided an additional time to meet. And we took advantage of the COVID silver linings, and if it was better for families, we met virtually. So we used whatever means possible to make sure we were connecting with our families. We have an absolutely wonderful PTA who holds regular meetings and plans events for our students that give them opportunities to grow in every way, both socially, which we know they've missed some in the last couple of years, but also academically. We had our trunk or treat event, which was so much fun. I used to think I was good at trunk or treat, and now I have to up my game some because there are some decorators in the crowd here. We were going to hold a Holidays Around the World fun event, but looking at some conflicts, we've decided to shift, which sometimes you have to do. And what we're going to do is in the new year, we'll be doing Reading Around the World. So we'll be focused still with what we were hoping to do, which was expose our students to a variety of cultures through literature and activities, but just taking the holidays out and making it a worldwide trip. And it might link to the park activity, guys. Just heads up for you who are here. In addition to that, we put out a weekly newsletter each week. This gives us an opportunity to share with parents and staff the amazing things our students are doing, keeping them informed of upcoming events. And we also share a read aloud book each week to ensure we're supporting that literacy and making sure that students have the opportunity to be read to each week. We have an average of 150 views on the newsletter weekly. Other things that we've done as a school this year, we had our fire safety event and our Veterans Day assembly, both of which link to college and career readiness. These are careers that are vital to our community and viable for our students. And they also link to citizenship, which is an important component for students to learn about. We had our winter concert last week that celebrated the arts, and they were incredible. One of the best concerts was what people have told me in a very long time. And we're currently involved in our Show You Care activity, which is community building and ensuring that students learn about taking care of others as well as themselves. And now I would like to introduce Sasha Wicki, our student government president, to discuss how student voice plays into Morris Elementary.
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Sasha Wicki and I'm the Student Government President. We meet as a club 2 times a month and discuss opportunities for community engagement, school spirit events, and fundraising. Then we have the responsibility to schedule a meeting with Ms. Jean Greco to plan for the upcoming month. So far, we have held a raffle at our winter concert, planned for next week's Spirit Week, and decorated bags for the PTA Holiday Store. We are also excited for the opportunity to have a drama club at Granting Morse this year. Now, I would like to introduce Eve. Thank you, Sasha. My name is Eve Ruberg, and I am the Student Government Vice President. Another important way that students are involved in our daily school activities is that 6th grade students assist Mrs. Jeanne Greco with the morning announcements. This is an opportunity for us to share information, and all the students are looking forward to when they are in 6th grade so they can help. Now I would like to introduce Harper. Thank you, Eve. My name is Harper Marino, and I'm the Student Government Secretary. We had an opportunity to complete an anonymous survey and Google Forms across all 3 elementary schools to share how the start to the new school year has been. It included questions about what has been good about the transition and start of the next school year and what has been challenging. This is an opportunity for all students to share their thoughts. We will be giving another opportunity to share our thoughts after the end of the 2nd quarter. Now I'd like to introduce Cameron Norcross.
Thank you, Harper. My name is Cameron Norcross, and I am the Student Government Treasurer. The final item I would like to share with you tonight is the Principal Advisory Committee. Each month, 4 to 6, 5th and 6th graders get to eat lunch with Miss Jeanne Greco and share how their time has been at Saugerties Central School District. We talk about our plans for the future, things we both love, both in school and out of school, and things we wish we could change. By the end of the year, every 5th and 6th grader will have an opportunity to share their thoughts. Thank you so much for hearing our voices tonight.
And I would be remiss not to recognize as they're walking out the room, Jenner Kapani and Faith Dixon, who support these students as the Student Council advisors. You're not getting away that easy, ladies. All right, our final bucket that we wanted to highlight tonight is student support, because our students need and deserve all the support we can give them every day. We are so fortunate at Morris to have a full-time social worker and a full-time psychologist who focus on social emotional well-being of our students. They do that through mandated counseling services, as needed counseling services, education to a whole class in small groups, and also push and support to the classroom. And they are instrumental. They're my right and left hand. They're amazing. In the support of our literacy goals, we have a full-time librarian now, and we also have a part-time reading teacher who's working with our students of highest needs. We were fortunate this year to work together, all 3 elementary schools, to develop scheduling that focused on the ability to mainstream for our students who deserve that opportunity, and also focus on the arts, scheduling both band and chorus into the rotation, which ensures that all students are allowed the opportunity to participate, not just those who have transportation. We have a weekly student support team. You will see them right up there in the corner that meet. It includes our part-time attendance clerical worker, our psychologist, our social worker, and our school nurse. We meet weekly to look at attendance concerns, changes in behavior that have been brought to our attention, and both students and families in need, and develop a plan of action to help. We're running our extended day program, which we're so fortunate to be able to offer through the ARP money. Right now we're offering 12 different programs, including math and ELA support, book studies, aerospace, inventors club, Google Skills and Forensic Club, and Geometry Detectives. I want to focus on 2 of those just to highlight them. Again, as we said with our math program, we noticed that geometry was an area of challenge. So we have a 1st grade program called Geometry Detectives. The students think they're solving mysteries and they're learning geometry skills. You can see them right up there in the top corner with their magnifying glasses. They are searching for rectangles in that picture. We also have our Google Skills, which is focused on our older students. This delves deeper into the Google Suite and teaches students how to use the program in a way that helps them with their current studies, but also prepares them for the work that they'll see at the secondary level. And then the final bullet on this is, again, here's that word intentional, adult professional learning. We've been working very hard as an elementary unit, because that's what we are, all 3 buildings. Once a month, our elementary teachers meet horizontally with all 3 elementary schools across the board to share ideas and to ensure consistency. And then the other monthly meeting is housed within our building, and we've been doing a deep dive into our philosophy of literacy. So we really understand the true power and meaning of that statement, and staff has identified words that were meaningful to them, and each month we choose a different word to focus on. The last section, I'm going to introduce the members of our BLT, but then I'm going to ask one of them to come up and present. So we are fortunate. We have actually 5 members on our BLT, 5 parents: Christine Lang, Carmelina DeWitt, Patricia Tiano, Lauren Gruber, Stacy DeMille. We have a staff member who is also a parent, Patricia Pipitone, and then myself. And I'm going to ask Ms. Pipitone to come up and share our work in the BLT so far.
Good evening, thank you. So we as a group have looked into SMART goals. So we have short-term goals and long-term goals, and we want to make sure that they're measurable. So the increase, some of our short-term goals. Oh, did I miss one?
There was one before, but you're fine.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's because I missed that meeting, sorry. So I missed a meeting, and during that meeting, they all made their, the vision of a graduate. And so we've done that within our district, so I'm familiar with it, so I apologize for skipping it. But it's a meaningful activity because it's looking at what we want our students to be in the future, not just where they are right now. So obviously that helps us with our SMART goals and where we want to go. So we have short-term and long-term goals. I don't know who's changing the slide. So increasing the percentage of students on grade level using the iReady math and reading data. So the short-term goals are increasing by percentages, moving 3% of students that are not meeting expectations to moving to the approaching expectations. So, and our long-term focus is maintaining that growth through the summer. And some of that data was shown by you where you can see that in September, that red area is larger, and as the year goes on, it gets smaller. But one of our goals is to see what we can do about starting our year off with a smaller red section to begin with. So we are looking at attendance data, the SEL data, the behavioral data, the community engagement data. We plan to develop our second SMART goal at our January meeting. So we have put a good start into our work, and we're going to continue on that positive trend. Thank you.
And that is a slice of the work and the amazing people who are at Morris this year. If you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them, or if I can't, find out the answers for you.
So I definitely want to thank you. This was an amazing, I don't know if this is on.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
It's back. So this was an amazing presentation. Thank you very much. I do want to do a shout out. I don't know if she's listening or if she's on. She usually is. To my fellow data former board member who was always, we talk so much about data and we talk so much about data-driven decisions, and really your presentation has done that. So if our former board member, Dr. Katie Emerson-Haas is listening, I'm doing this for her knowing that she would be here going, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because that's exactly what Katie would be saying. In terms of your data though, the one question that keeps coming up to me is just knowing that our students are not logically growing. And it's saying that, so when I look at, when we get down into that data, when we look at, from 40 kids to 12 kids, when we're seeing that change, but we also know that kids
Some will go slide back into having 3 areas that are in need, and others are going to go forward. So does the iReady offer you the opportunity to not just delve into the numbers, but to get as specific, to get to those individuals? Because it looks like we're doing great, but we also know we have some kids that are going up, we have new kids coming in, we have, like, the fluidity of students is not necessarily going to be shown.
And I think it's the fluidity of learning. There are elements in math, because that's a big area, that some kids are going to fly, and then they're going to have areas of struggle. And the nice thing about the iReady program is it has the assessments that give us the data, but what it does is it actually takes those assessments and that information that we're gaining from students, and what it does is it allows the teachers to assign individualized work. So during center time, during time where students are able to work independently, they're not working on generic tasks. They are working on tasks that are developed specific to their needs. So I think that it's going to take time. I think it's going to take effort. I think our staff is putting that time and effort in. They're working with our coaching staff, who are amazing. And I think a big part of it is going to be the fact that, again, that word intentional is coming up. I mean, I've been in education for 20 years. We've been looking at data all 20 years. But I feel like in the last stretch of the last kind of like 5, it hasn't just been like, check, we looked at data. We've looked at data with a purpose, and we've looked at data with the intent of individualization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jean Greco and students. We're going to move into public recognition, and any members of the public who are wishing to speak, I would ask you to make sure you've read the guidelines that are in the board agenda, particularly matters pertaining to personnel of students or matters for executive session, therefore cannot be addressed in a public forum. So basically, if you want to speak, that's fine. If it's pertaining to the agenda, that's fine. Just no bad mouth anybody by name when mentioning students because of confidentiality. So please approach the podium, state your name and residence if you wish to speak, and address the board.
There's a list. Do we go in order on the list, or how do you do it?
I can't see the list, so whoever wants
How
to
do you
speak.
usually do it? Everybody
Just come up and speak.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Rachel Summers. I'm the mother of 4 children, with 2 children with disabilities in the Saugerties School District.
Ms. Summers, could you state your residence just for the record, please?
Saugerties, you mean like the street address?
Yes.
42 Julie Drive, Saugerties, New York.
Thank you.
I've also been the foster mother to many children who have also needed special ed services in Saugerties. I've not always had the issues that we are having now and for the past few years. I'm also on the front line as a teacher's aide at a school for children with autism that many of the children in our own town attend. I'm unable to attend work when my child is not allowed to attend school. I volunteer for Special Olympics, with adults with disabilities, and beyond. I am not just caring about my own child, but about the whole group being who aren't treated fairly and don't always have a voice. If you have heard your 6th grader come home to tell you about what autism is, and a lady came in to teach them and taught them what a harmful slur the word retard is, that was me. I was an aide in this school. I was a monitor in this school. I'm an active member in this community and want to resolve these issues and help others. I'm here today to speak about my daughter, Aaliyah. Aaliyah is a smart, aware, silly, beautiful, social butterfly. She has a diagnosis of porencephaly, microcephaly, seizures, cerebral palsy, and numerous vision conditions as well as GI conditions. Aaliyah requires a one-to-one nurse at school and on the bus to monitor for seizures and feed her as she is at risk of choking and aspiration. She was born failure to thrive, and they're also in charge of changing her safely. These are the bare minimum requirements as a nurse for her. Aaliyah's father, Michael, and I adopted Aaliyah when she was 18 months old. She weighed only 13 pounds. She was on the brink of getting a feeding tube. We worked nonstop to get Aaliyah to a healthy weight and maintain weight gain, and along with her wonderful one-to-one nurse, she has been thriving for several years. When that nurse was unavailable, we were always told that there was no subs. Not once was there a sub, and Aaliyah would have to stay home. With less than 2 weeks notice last month, Aaliyah lost her nurse without any transition plan. They had been together for 4 years. She immediately missed over 3 days of school in the last 3 weeks, over 3 days. If we go back to the summer of 2021, you can see from emails, I have them all, that we were having the same issues. No nurses, missing school, and a pure lack of communication from the special ed department to me. I wrote and still write email after email with almost never an email back. I have to start CCing the superintendent to get a response at all, or her advocate. Mostly I get a response of, we'll let you know when we know. It never gets anywhere. It shouldn't be this hard. When Aaliyah misses school, she is missing her academics, occupational therapy, physical therapy, vision therapy, speech therapy, her therapy that helps her learn communication, what she's going to use to talk, because she's fully aware and has so much to say. Aaliyah thrives on being social and also needs the interaction with her peers. It is a place she goes where she's not stared at and children play with her as a child as she is. Since October of 2021, I've been advocating for Aaliyah to get an assistive tech eval to help discover what form of communication would work best for her. Her speech therapist recommended this in October. It took over a year of me emailing and staying on it for it to eventually a year later happen. One tech evaluation. I have purchased every iPad, touch button, head switch, speaker, and program that she has, which are usually about $350. I don't mind it, but this doesn't help her when we don't have a specialized tech who can teach her therapist and myself how to use this technology. Saugerties Central School District is letting my daughter slip through the cracks. I said it 3 years ago, and I'm still saying it. The district relies on parents not knowing the laws. My daughter is entitled to an education. This is by law. And if you cannot provide her education on a certain day, she is supposed to have alternative education. When I ask about this, I get no answers. The one close answer I got was that we'll see if the school can make it up when she gets back, whenever she gets back. That's not the definition of alternative education. We should be having a therapist come to our home. I will drive her to the school to get her therapy. I'm willing to do anything for my daughter, and the district is not. I asked on April 9th, 2022, if there would be an ad out for a nurse to be hired by the district instead of using a nursing agency that has no nurses to offer for my daughter. No response. We have been given a couple district nurses the past few weeks who both stated they have never worked with disabled children and were uncomfortable feeding or lifting her. Aaliyah came home starving more than one day. When I spoke to the special ed, can't name names, right? Okay. All I got from the special ed department was, oh, well, is she coming back? So I guess it only matters if there's a warm body there, but not the care of my daughter. It is inconceivable to me how someone who works with children, someone in that position, can allow this to continue. This is the district's representative for my daughter and other children whom she is responsible for. and needs are simply not getting met, needs that are required by law. But more unsettling is her complete and utter disrespect and compassion for my daughter, my family, and the ripple effect it has in this community and the other children. Time and time again, the same issues are discussed with no resolution. I have a copy on disc recorded from our meeting in April. All the same things. Nothing happened, not any attempt. If the district cannot provide a safe education for my daughter, it is their responsibility to look elsewhere. I don't want that. I want my daughter to go to school in Ulster County. I like her being 5 minutes from my job, because when you get a call your daughter's having a seizure, you want to get there quick. I don't want to hire an attorney. I want my daughter to be able to get an education. We have to fight for everything. We have to fight for her to have a wheelchair. We have to fight for technology. I don't want to fight for her to get the same thing every other children is getting. It's not right, and it's illegal. When you leave here tonight and you're able to scratch the itch you have, or voice what hurts to your doctor, or tell your loved one how you're feeling, think about my daughter who's being deprived of learning the skills to allow her to do these things. All the things you take for granted. Aaliyah cannot even watch her siblings play basketball at Donlin. We can't go to the sidewalk at Saugerties. We accept all these things and work through it. I'm not accepting this. Aaliyah has 13 more years in this district, and I'm not going anywhere. The emails will still be sent. I'll never stop calling. So everyone will have to get used to my face or give my daughter what she deserves and is entitled to. And this is my daughter, Aaliyah, who deserves it. I'm not going to go through them, all the absences in the last 3 years because she has no nurse. The email stating over and over again to the special ed, I've heard no response. Can you please get back to me? A month later, same thing. This needs to be fixed. Not just talked about, not a plan, a follow through.
Rachel, I don't know how I'm going to follow up on that. You're going to make me cry. Jeez. Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Crystal Storm. I'm a mother of 2 children that have IEPs also. Today I'm going to talk about my youngest, Leah Storm, who's 7 years old.
Ma'am, can you state your residence, please?
Sure. I live at 2 Donna's Way, Saugerties, New York.
Thank you.
My kids go to Riccardi. I have my youngest is Leah Storm, who's 7 years old, and she got a kidney transplant at the age of 4 years old. Today I'm going to talk about the shortage and her feeding therapy that she needs. Leah has many medical conditions. She had open heart surgery, she had a kidney transplant, she was on dialysis for 4.5 years. She's blind in her right eye. She's in a mainstream class, but she has a one-to-one nurse. Because how complicated her medications are. And it has to be through her G-tube. And she also gets boluses of water to keep her kidney going. Unfortunately, Leah can't be potty trained. My husband and I had the surgery for Leah. Unfortunately, it failed. So Leah has to be in diapers. When Leah's nurse is sick, which this past week, her nurse was sick for 4 days and my daughter missed school. I reached out to special ed to see if they had a substitute teacher, and they said they do not for a nurse. Leah misses out on vital time in the classroom because we don't have a sub. Why is this important? Because Leah needs to be in the classroom. Unfortunately, my daughter was born 6 weeks early, premature, and spent 3 months in the NICU in Albany and in Boston, fighting for her life. We have been blessed with a wonderful nurse for these past 2 years, but the other 2 years, including COVID, unfortunately, we did not have the luck of a draw. Leah's one nurse fell at Cahill and broke her elbow on the ice. The next nurse, who was wonderful, unfortunately passed away unexpectedly. It took 3 months to get a new nurse. My daughter attended summer school because how behind she was. That nurse left in September because she moved. I also sent many emails to the Board of Education, the superintendent. This is your first time seeing my face, but I have sent emails to you and to other people. My daughter Leah also has a G-tube and she has feeding problems. When Leah was born, she needed to do peritoneal dialysis. That is a catheter that's inserted into your stomach and you're hooked up to a machine for 12 hours. So she did 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day for 4.5 years of her life until my husband was able to donate to her. Because of this, when she was born, she was 4 pounds, 11 ounces, and they couldn't fit a peritoneal catheter plus a G-tube on her. So unfortunately, Leah got stuck with an NG tube, which is a tube that goes up your nose, down in your stomach, and it just floats. If you ask any cancer patient or anyone who's ever had an NG tube, it's uncomfortable to eat. When Leah was 5.5 years old, she finally got her G-tube done. Unfortunately, Leah has a big oral aversion. I have gave proof over and over again that Leah needs help with a professional feeding therapist. And last year we got one. They came to the house 3 times a cycle. And she was wonderful. Leah and her has made big progress. Unfortunately this year, they took that away. Why? Because they wanted another swallow study, which I gave, and Leah's doctor did not think she needed one because she could eat and chew. It's just an oral sensory, which we were working with the feeding specialist through the school. So the GI doctor said, how about we use the feeding clinic in Albany? Great, right? Yes. Well, Leah goes once a week to the feeding therapy virtually through a computer to eat, instead of having someone come to our house 3 times a cycle to help my daughter. We have the staff that could come to my house and help Leah grow and thrive to become just like her peers. And unfortunately, you have denied her that. Because you think one time through a computer is okay for her. I have showed documentation over and over again, and nothing has changed. I am tired. I'm tired of phone calls. I am tired. We want Leah to have, even in her class or with her peers, 2 times a week. She does get that, but she has not made a connection with the new feeding therapist. Because with all the schools changing, all the teachers changed, you guys took that feeding therapist out of her school. And now she has not made that connection anymore. We need to do better for these kids. As a parent, it's a struggle. In the past 7 years, my daughter's been through a lot, and the school should be helping parents in need. Instead, they're making it harder for us, making us beg for technology, even though we keep giving them paperwork and medical records saying they need this stuff. So when you eat your hamburger from McDonald's tonight, or your Main Street takeout that you did from the 6th grade fundraiser, Think about how we felt on Thanksgiving when Leah couldn't eat at 7 years old. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening. My name is Vince Bonell. I live at 10 Latham Circle in the village of Saugerties. I've lived in this community my entire life. I was away only when I went off to school and went off to the military. But I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of different things in society, in schools, and the whole 9 yards. I sat up there for 6 years a number of years ago. So I know it's not an easy job sitting there. The reason I'm here is that I have a concern with the security in the schools. I visited with with the superintendent, Mr. Reinhardt, and we discussed the security and my concerns. He suggested that I go to the safety committee meeting, which was about a month later, and said, go ahead and express your concerns. Well, I got there, and I was really impressed. I was really impressed, and they do a wonderful job on that committee, preparing for all different types of emergencies, health, fire, and all other things. They had at that meeting representation from the fire departments, from the police department. They had our mayor, Bill Murphy, from the village of Saugerties. They had the supervisor from the town, Fred Costello. Both of those guys were remote. And there was another woman on remote, I can't remember. Along with administrators and principals from the schools and whatnot. And I found the meeting very organized, very thoughtful, well done. Okay, and then it came to my turn to speak. I kind of blew the meeting up, I think. And I was wondering if they would invite me back. But anyway, so when the topic of security came, I said, what the school is doing is wonderful. With all the technologies and all the good things that you're doing. But I feel that we need to have physical presence of security officers in every school. Every school. The society we live in today, I don't think I have to tell anybody, it's pretty rough out there. Crime in our cities at the highest it's been in my lifetime. Homelessness, mental illness on the streets, and I'm afraid. I am afraid for our children in these schools. What I found out at the meeting was that we have one SRO, and that person is in the junior senior high. No. I feel that we need to have a second SRO in that big school. I feel that we have to have one in each elementary school, a trained security person. I reached out to a number of different schools. I reached out to where my two grandchildren in Catskill go. They have a security officer, retired state troopers, retired local police departments, people who are trained in security to deal with situations in every school. They have them in Kingston. Since Uvalde, I believe they've even put them in a lot of schools up in the Albany area. So things have changed. I am not advocating a police state. Don't get me wrong. What I'm advocating for are for our children, for the security and the safety of our children and the teachers and the staff in there. And my feeling is, what's more important than what we have in these schools? What's more important? If we as a society don't protect our children, as these mothers know, if we don't protect our children, what kind of society are we? We are providing, I think, for the most part, a very good education and service. But I really believe that we need to protect these schools. Just a couple, I don't want to bore you, but just a couple of statistics since I've been on the hunt here for information. These shootings, these active, and I'm talking about active shootings, they have happened throughout the country. There have not been too many states that have not endured this type of pain and sadness. From California to New York, Florida to Ohio, and many places in between. Many places. As close, if anybody remembers it here, East Greenbush, up northern Columbia County, Albany. If you recall, in 2004, a young man from a home that was not so good, he was not a happy kid, came in with a shotgun into that school and started firing off that shotgun. He injured one person, and thank God an assistant principal subdued that kid and put him down. Otherwise, it could have been that much more tragic. So, and like I said, the world we live in today is very difficult. I have 4 sons. My youngest graduated in 2005. And now he has children in this district. Even back then, I remember there were problems, but not like today. Not like today. The disregard for human life, for respect, for so many different things. That I'm very concerned about the schools. Just some other statistics that I came across. And again, I don't want to sound morbid or cruel, but just some things just to think about. Since Columbine in 1999 and to Uvalde, there have been 118 school shootings, active shooters in schools. There have been 392 deaths, over 1,100 injured. And it's broken down by, the study I was reading was broken down by percentages in what schools. High schools, let's see here, 59%. Middle schools, junior high, 21%. Elementary schools, 14%. So it happens in all the schools. And my concern is that I asked someone in the school district, I said, what happens if there's an emergency at one of the schools, God forbid, and there's no police presence? Well, obviously there's going to be a police officer or a SWAT team that goes after that person or people. But at that point, if you have someone out there that really wants to do harm to people, and there's no police presence or security presence or trained individuals, the damage is done by the time the police have gotten there. The damage is done. And what I don't want, and you know what? This is like an insurance policy to me. You got to have insurance on your car just in case. If we put security officers in there and nothing ever happens, that's great. That's great. Just a couple other things. Again, I don't want to beat you up on this, but so after that meeting, that safety meeting, I was walking home from the school, and I called Chief Sinagra, who was in the meeting with me, and I said to him, well, first thing I said, do you think they'll invite me back? So, but anyway, he said, yeah, I think they will. You can be a citizen advocate. And I said, that's good for me. So he had done a few calculations when he ran back to the office after the meeting, and calculated that he based his number on 4 additional SROs at $30 an hour. And again, I'm saying retired police officers, and the like, at $30 an hour. But I'm proposing 5. 2 in the junior, senior high, 1 in each school. 5 times 30 times 6 hours a day times 180 days a year, you're looking at $172,000. That's the cost, the financial cost. But God forbid, what would be the cost if we had an incident? I don't even want to think about that cost. I don't even want to think about it. $172,000 on a budget of $66 million. Not, do your math. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. To add that layer of protection for these students, the teachers, and the rest of the staff. Not a lot. And one last thing I'll throw at you. When I was in the meeting, like I said, Bill Murphy, I'm on the village board. I'm also a member of Kiwanis. I'm also a Legion, American Legion member. So I stay active in the community. But when I was at that meeting, and I expressed my opinion, Bill Murphy, who I work with on the village board, said that I agree with Vince 100%. And Murphy and I sometimes don't agree. We're nowhere near 100%. But he agreed, and he said, you know, this was talked about and spoken about. I think it was, what, 6 years ago when we had that incident with that young man who lived in Murph's neighborhood. And fortunately, the police were able to resolve that, but unfortunately, that young man went away to jail. So he supported me on this, and I'm asking, and the police chief supports me on this, and I'm asking for your support, and I hope that you will give this some strong consideration and include this in your school budget. Thank you very much.
Mr. Reinhardt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. As far as superintendent's report, first of all, I'd just like to make an announcement effective January 3rd, 2023. Ms. Susan McKinney will be assigned to work as an elementary project coordinator, and she'll be working out of the special education office at Mount Marion. So we'd like to welcome Ms. McKinney back in her new role. We do have 2 presentations tonight. They're both very exciting. One is about the budget, which some of us find exciting, and the first one is the capital project update, and it's kind of fitting that it's at Morse because we just finally got approval for the stage addition from State Ed. So I'll turn it over to BBL and Tetra Tech.
Good evening, board. And you stole my thunder.
I've been waiting for a year for that thunder, so.
All right, tonight we wanted to share some updates on the 3 different capital projects. So with the next slide, we're showing some of the important work that was accomplished in 2022. So the track at the junior senior high school was resurfaced. The roof at Cahill was mostly completed. There's still some things that will be finished up in the new year. And the Hildebrandt roof should be finished up in the very near future. So those are important things that we were able to achieve this past year. So as Superintendent Reinhardt mentioned, here at Morse, we did have to apply with the Department of State for a code variance to add the stage opening was the big thing there. And we did receive that actually right after the last project update we shared. And then we've since received, right after Thanksgiving, full commissioner's approval on that. So that's fantastic news, and we've been in the process of recombining that back into one complete, cohesive rebid set. So there's been a number of scope modifications as part of the rebid set. The district has gone through, reassessed different priority needs, and we've catered the set to reflect those highest needs. We know that certainly the Morse stage addition at this building was a very important scope item, equity amongst the different elementaries for that opportunity to have a stage. And there were other scope removals that totaled about $4 million. Part of what we're also evaluated to see how we could accommodate the project was we looked deeper into the incidental budget, so the soft costs of the project, to see if there was any other monies that were available there. We also looked at and have implemented reducing the size of the in-contract allowances for each contract to also allow for more construction dollars. So for the rebid package, we've also really looked at adding more alternates to the project. Alternates really allow the project to be catered depending on how the bids come in to protect the budget, as well as add value to the project. So depending on how things fall, that lets some or hopefully all of the alternates be awarded. So what you're going to see up here is at the junior senior high school, we have the generator. We also have the weight room flooring, the spray booth work, and the senior high school locker room renovations. At Cahill, we've broken each of the 4 floors for the flooring work into an alternate. The idea is, again, to try to maximize getting something over nothing. And then here at Morse, it's really related to the addition, a couple of strategies from a bidding perspective with the roofing, as well as adding cooling to the gym and the new stage. There's actually one other that's related to site for some additional parking at this that didn't make it into the final presentation. My apologies. I'll turn it over to Jeff to talk about some of the prime contracts.
So the original bid, we went out for a number of prime contracts. Some of the feedback that we got when we were looking at the budgets is that we had some potential that we could get some control on adding some additional prime contracts in here. So in addition to the general work, the plumbing, the mechanical, the electrical, and the roofing, which was already awarded, we were looking to add a window contractor, and then we were able to keep in and rescope a lot for the site work contractor that allows us to have some opportunity moving forward. So on the general scheme of the calendar here, we have, as was said already, we've got approval from SED. We are looking to go out to bid with plans available January 3rd. Looking for bids to be due February 2nd. That will allow us to review contractor qualifications, put recommendations together, and meet as a board back again on the 14th of February, looking to award that work and move forward with these contracts. Again, we're looking to do a kickoff probably beginning of April, trying to target a time there when there is a downtime at the schools so we can get into the schools, walk through, allow those that have the contracts to really see what they need to do in preparation for the summer work. Slide here basically just kind of showing a flow of what we're looking to do and when. Again, hazardous material abatement typically is going to occur during the summers in preparation for the work that's going on within the schools. And then we've kind of targeted some of the schools here of what we're going to be doing throughout the work at the middle school, high school is going to be kind of a continuous flow. Work at Morse again, because the stage work that we can continue to be on the facility, continue to do that work. Most of the other schools are mostly going to be during the summer. We're going to be doing the work within those spaces. The plan again is to finish kind of at the end of 2024 summer with the closeout occurring right after. Can I handle your flow here?
Sure. So part of the project bidding process, just kind of a quick flow chart here, but BBL is doing a lot of contractor outreach to encourage different companies to bid on the project, which is great from a competitiveness standpoint, getting more bids, people sharpening their pencil. As we talked about, looking at the different prime contracts to try to find ways to bring the most value to the district. So for instance, adding the separate window prime contract because there's so much window work on this project. Looking and making sure that contractors are seeing what's in the document. So doing walkthroughs, pre-bid conferences as they're called, to make sure that they're really looking around and seeing what they're bidding on. And if they have questions, they have opportunities to ask them. Using different mediums to make sure the word gets out there on the street. So advertising the project for bid, using the different plant houses, the plant rooms. Then of course we have the public bid opening, and from there, as Jeff mentioned, we evaluate and interview the different apparent low bidders, and ultimately that leads to the recommendations for award. So on this slide, I think the most important point to make in a capital project is everyone's safety is first and foremost. That's paramount. And there's requirements not only by commissioners' regulations, but we also have those in the documents that contractors are buying so that, we create a safe separation of students, contractors, so that everybody maintains a safe perspective. We know that education's the first and most important thing that has to happen in these buildings during construction. So there's also requirements about when certain noise levels of activities can happen, things of that nature. As I mentioned, separating the different work zones of students and staffs. Contractors always have to wear ID badges, have to park in certain areas. Again, part of that, keeping everybody safe and separate. Jeff, you might want to talk about a few of these.
Yeah. In addition, we will have, as the CM on the project, the construction manager, we will have full-time supervision on the projects. We will have a superintendent will be assigned to the project throughout the duration, and then we will have, during those summers when we have multiple projects that are going on, we'll add additional superintendent or superintendents so that we can make sure that we're providing a presence on the project to make sure that those procedures are being handled. We are going to be the primary hub for communication, so there shouldn't be any contractor popping up to say, oh, by the way, a great idea would be X, Y, and Z. We'll take that information and bring that to the district so they can make proper decisions on how they want to handle the expenditure of their money. Again, the aspect, and it's kind of like the gray zone at the bottom here, the reality is that construction is going to create an inconvenience for those that are around the construction. We'll do our best to mitigate that, plan ahead, make people aware of what's going on, put plans together and share that with the district so that that information is put out there. But there are things that do occur. There are instances where noises do get out of that proper range, and we'll work with the district to make sure that those communications are there so we can shut that down if that gets to that point.
I would just also add on the inconvenience standpoint, it could be something as simple as once construction has happened, some of the HVAC equipment, for instance, is notorious for this. It takes a season or so to really iron out the kinks in new equipment. So those are inconveniences as well. Looking at the overall timeline, so this is just showing all the projects to date. I think the big takeaway here is, we're on target with the anticipated schedule here. The roofing still shows as if it's going out for a while because there is and will be some other roofing that has to happen. So it's not just the current work by SNL, but there'll be some other work, for instance, on the addition here. The track we talked about, that's been closed out. the addition here. Again, great news. We've got all the approvals, so that's been worked back into the reprioritized, repackaged rebid set, and that, as Jeff mentioned, will be available to bidders come January 3rd. For the energy performance contract project, a couple of updates. Really, we're in the closeout phase. There are a couple of relatively minor construction items that are still happening, but for the most part, what's really getting sorted out is related to the building controls, fine-tuning those. I know that staff in different buildings have unfortunately been experiencing some of those startup hiccups. There's been some programming issues that they've been fixing in the computer to help control with that. They've discovered some, it happens, some of the dampers and valves got installed incorrectly. So they've discovered that. Those types of things have been fixed. They've also added, at some of the buildings, at least a morning warm-up schedule to try to help with walking into a cooler building. So there's still going to be some of those challenges as we work to fine-tune things, but hopefully we can minimize them and keep people as comfortable as possible. Coming up over the break, they're looking, the contractor Honeywell is looking at the integration of their HVAC controls and the graphics, the pieces like Randy and Jeremy used to go in there and control each and every room, that type of thing. And we're also going to be doing inspections. So that's really what's coming up. And then we've received some information regarding a credit for some of that scope overlap between the capital project and the EPC. So that's something we're working with the district to sort out. And then for the capital outlay project at Saugerties, so again, looking at some of the flooring over there on the first floor. So we were able to work with SED, and because the project was approved but never technically awarded to a contractor, we got them to extend the voter authorization date, which is great news because it means we didn't have to go back into SED a second time. So a cooperative we've reached out to develop a proposal so that hopefully we can expedite getting that work done as soon as possible this calendar year. And that project has to be fully constructed by June 30th, the end of the fiscal year. With that, I don't know if there's any questions from the board.
Always. Always.
Shut her down.
Try again. Is it my phone? We did this before.
That's the speaker's pointing right at you. Speaker behind you
Do you
pointing
want me
right
to
at you.
move? What's better here?
I don't know. It was working okay before.
That's what I do. So, two questions. One, you raised the issue about safety, and that kind of made me think about the fact that we are coming into educational buildings, and although we're trying to do most of the work off hours when students are here, when there are times that our people have to be in the building when the students are here, as the construction manager, is there extra stuff put into the bid or the proposal regarding who's working in our buildings? Any extra checks or things that are being done?
There's a couple of aspects here just to try and make clear. One is we do create physical barriers. Within the contract, we put together phasing plans. So for example, with the stage addition, we will end up putting physical barriers up so the contractors cannot just walk over and be in the school. So there is a physical barrier scenario. There are some scenarios that occur when, say, we're dealing with connections for the building management system where somebody may have to go and change something out, where we may be escorting them to that location, escorting them out, so that, again, we don't have interaction that it's not supposed to be there. If we're looking at doing any of personal background checks or things like that, that is not something that is part of the contract.
You mentioned the additional 2-hour warm-up time. Is that something that is like an automated, put in the system, or is our staff showing up 2 hours earlier to start up the system?
I can speak for Jim here, but the reality is that that is a building management system. So like if you were at home and you set your thermostat and you say, okay, well, when I go to bed, I want it cooler, but I want it to warm up, and I want it to start warming up at 6 a.m., that's what they're doing within the building. So that 2 hours prior to anybody showing up, whatever we talked about, they're setting that to start warming that system up 2 hours before that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello. Okay, I believe everyone has a legal size document with a lot of numbers to help you stay awake. Okay, so first I'm just going to go over the 21-22 actuals. So we're looking on the long sheet, the revenues start at the top. So the real property line includes the tax levy, the STAR money, interest and penalties, and payment in lieu of taxes. And then the next one down, state aid, it's pretty self-explanatory. Federal aid includes a small amount of the CARES Act money that we previously received. It also includes payments for Medicaid, and there's about $60,000 worth of money from the federal government to reimburse operational expenses for the school lunch fund, which was a one-time thing that we received last year, which was nice. And then the other category is our BOCES refund, any tuition paid to us by other districts for foster students, health and welfare services, interest, income, donations, insurance dividends, and lease payments. And then the last category there is interfund transfers. We didn't have anything in 2022, but prior to that we had some unspent cash from capital projects that got moved back to the general fund. So under expenditures by function, the first category is general support. That is central office, facilities, and BOCES administration and capital expense. And then instruction is everything instructional, including principals, teachers, support staff, supplies and materials for students. Also includes special ed and ELL. Next, transportation. That's self-explanatory, I think. Employee benefits is next, which includes retirement system payments, Social Security, unemployment, workers' compensation, medical insurance, and some other benefits. Debt service is payments for principal and interest, and then interfund transfers in this category is support of the school lunch fund, along with the local share of the summer school program for special education students, and the capital outlay projects that we do each year for $100,000. So as you can see, we ended up 2022 with a surplus. So the surplus or the deficit is the difference between the revenues and the expense for each particular year. And then with 2022, the surplus adds to the fund equity below. So if you go down below and see budgetary reserves, So the first line is fund equity at the beginning of the year, and then you add in the surplus to get you to fund equity at the end of the year. And then out of that total balance of 12.8 million, next line down is the non-spendable and restricted fund balance. So it's 9.7 out of that 12.8 is non-spendable. So the non-spendable is prepaid expense. So if you go down even farther, that 9.7 is broke down into the non-spendable prepaid item and then the other reserves in the general fund. So the unrestricted fund balance includes assigned appropriated amounts for the next year's budget, and also assigned unappropriated amounts, which are any outstanding encumbrances, which are purchase orders that were issued in one fiscal year that get pulled into the next fiscal year because we haven't received the invoices yet or the actual items. So, in going over 21-22 actuals, the largest savings are in the areas of transportation and health insurance. We do have a lack of drivers, which is causing us to have a lot of double runs, so we're saving money associated with that, as well as we didn't have as many different schools to go to for our out-of-district students. We still have a lot of out-of-district students, but they just went to less areas, which also saved some money as well. And under the health insurance, we had another premium holiday from our DHIC, which is our largest health insurance group for the district, that saved us approximately $950,000. A premium holiday is just, they give us a month off with no invoice. So 1 month is about $1 million. And then higher than anticipated revenues, our largest revenues that were over budget were in the areas of the tuition from other school districts, the health and welfare services, our BOCES refunds. We did receive a lot of state aid for homeless students, and that emergency operational cost reimbursement for the school lunch fund in the federal aid was unexpected. Okay, so the surplus generated allowed us to increase the TRS reserve, that's the Teachers Retirement System reserve, and we were able to add over $1 million to the capital reserve. So next we'll move forward to the projections. So there's the 2-page memo that goes along with it. I'm just gonna try to hit the highlights from that. So you understand where I'm getting the numbers that I'm using in this. So these are all estimates based on the assumptions I'm going to review, along with historical data and current trends as of right now. So on the expenditure side, at the beginning of the memo, we start with salary. So the first thing we have is we have begun negotiations with the teachers unit. Their agreement is expiring at the end of this fiscal year, and they are our largest collective bargaining group. Next, we have a lack of substitutes in all areas, and we have a lack of applicants in certain tenure areas of instruction. We also have market wage increases all around us. Basically, the districts in this area are kind of competing with each other for those substitutes and nurses as well. We keep one-upping each other. And the pool is very small, so next in the benefits category, the employer contribution for the teachers' retirement system, the rates are going to slightly decrease for next year. Probably about 0.5%. We'll know the final rate in January. And then the employees' retirement system rates are increasing for the following year from 11.29% up to 13.1%. The health insurance has actually been stable over the past few years, and we expect that to continue for the next few years, which is good news. Under the debt service, I've just used estimates for the $22 million capital project. This may change slightly after the bidding in January, February with the new cash flow projections, as well as the changes in interest rate. I don't expect it to change a lot, but it might change a little. And then we have transportation. So we contract with 4 different transportation companies, and 3 of those contractors have extensions each year, and their extensions use the CPI as the increase factor. So this past year, their increase was 6.3%. And then the 4th contractor is First Student, and their contract increases by only 2%. And their contract with us is up at the end of June this fiscal year. So we will be issuing a request for proposal, and we expect there to be an increase, and given the shortage of bus drivers and fuel and parts and everything else. That's one of the big question marks. So for revenues, for the allowable levy growth factor in the tax cap calculation, I've used a factor of 2% for the 23-24 calculation. That's that 2% number. When you hear about the 2% tax cap, it's 2% or the CPI, whichever is less. So 2% is less than the CPI, and right now the CPI is running about 7.92%, which is huge. Like almost 4 times what we're going to be allowed to use in that calculation. The next factor in that tax levy calculation is the tax base growth factor, which I do have some good news there for our community. For 23-24, the factor is 1.012, which is double the amount from last year. So it means our community is growing in property value. So not just the increase in your assessment, it doesn't really look at that, it's looking at the growth. So it's looking at new buildings and additions, things like that. So that was really good. We're in the top 3 in the county, so I had to brag about that. In the calculation for 23-24, I used that 2% for the allowable levy factor and the 1.012 for the tax-based growth factor. But going forward in the out years, I used the 3-year average, which is 1.74 for the allowable levy factor and 1.0074 for the tax-based growth factor. The next thing is payment in lieu of taxes. Those amounts are changing for 23-24. It's been pretty stable for the past few years, but one of them, the biggest one, Central Hudson, that one is due to come off, and then we have a few smaller solar pilots getting added on, so the difference is going to be a decrease of $170,000. So the change in the payment in lieu of taxes amount is included in the tax cap calculation, and then the total of the pilot agreements is included as a revenue item on the revenue side of the budget. So they're showing up in 2 different places. Next, the state aid. It's in New York state law that's guaranteeing us the full phase-in amount of foundation aid for 2023-24. And the calculations were recently recalculated for next year, and the district is set to receive about $17,456,000. This is approximately $900,000 over the current year foundation aid, and it's approximately $400,000 more than the previous full phase-in amount. So the calculation from last year, it's $400,000 higher. That's mostly due to the increase in CPI, which is one of the factors in that giant calculation. Next, I've included the signed lease agreements for the use of Mount Marion. They've been incorporated into the projections in that other revenue category. Okay, then if you look at the chart where the surplus and deficit category, that row across, so you're going to see for 2023-24, 23-24, a surplus. For 24-25, a small deficit, and then 25-26, deficit of about 1.1, and 26-27, about 2.1. And those are shown not incorporated any use of reserves or any unassigned fund balance. That's without using any of those categories down below. And in comparison with when I gave this presentation a year ago, we were looking at a $6.1 million deficit in 25-26. So we're about $5 million less in the hole than we were before. So the two biggest question marks, again, on the expense side of this is the salary and transportation. I think about it at night. And then the unknown on the revenue side is what foundation aid will look like in 24, 25, and beyond that. So it's the law that we get the full phase-in amount for 23, 24, but there's nothing that speaks to what goes beyond that. And then just a reminder, annual budgets are estimates of revenues and expenditures, and actual financial results differ from the budget each year. And again, this is a projection at one point in time using the estimates I have right now, and not that crystal ball, which I wish I had. So, Kirk, do you have anything to add that I may have missed?
Thank you, Jana. That was excellent. You know, once again, it's a lot of speculation. I think everybody at the table, probably everybody in the room knows the stressor when it comes to transportation and what the state is going to do with the full foundation aid phase in as we have these huge ebb and flow with the CPI. But you know, the point that Jane made when we had this presentation about 18 months ago, we were looking 4 years from now to be in the whole 6.1 million. Right now it's 1.1. And you know, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. And you know, the most important thing is, you know, to continually add programming for our students, because that's why we're here.
Question, and I'm just going to shout, and I think it's easier if I just shout. Can I just shout?
Yeah, we'll hear you.
Oh, good. Pilots.
Yes.
So, when Central Hudson's pilot, I'm so bad at pilots. And I don't know if you know of any more pilots that are coming down in the future, because I know that has such a huge impact in some of our projections now and into the future. When Central Hudson comes off, as I recall, some of what happens when they are no longer on our tax roll, or they're no longer, the pilot is no longer active, it still hurts us as a district because we didn't get any of the new construction aid, or what happens to us when pilots come on and pilots come off?
Oh, I think you mean that it's not incorporated into that tax-based growth factor?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I don't know. I wasn't here when the Central Hudson got negotiated or put on, but I don't know if that actually added anything. So you know what I mean?
So we didn't lose anything with Central Hudson's pilot. We're not gaining anything when they are no longer getting their pilot.
So what happens is, so when they're paying us the pilot, so they're giving us X amount of dollars, so it's a revenue to us, and then we incorporate the difference between each year's pilots into the tax cap calculation. Anyhow, but when they go off and they're no longer paying us the payment, they go back onto the tax rolls, and then they're paying taxes at whatever the tax rate is. So they're adding to the assessed value that the tax levy goes against. So it should come out that they're picking up a share of the taxes, so the tax rate would possibly go down. Sort of. But the ones coming on are solar, and those were negotiated fairly recently. And I do have an email out with IDA and the town to see, you know, what's going on with them, to make sure that those are coming on, and if there's anything else going on that I'm not aware of.
anything we can find out tax-wise would be helpful. Thank you.
Question. Can you hear me? Hello? So the question I have, and you mentioned it before, that a year ago, we went out to 2026 and it was $6 million, and now we're down to $1 million deficit projection. And if we go back to 2 years ago, we had, in 2025, which was the out year, we had a $9 million deficit projection, and now we're $142,000 in that year. It's again, a change in $9 million in our projection. And what changed in either the district's operations or in your assumptions that would have created such a dramatic decline in our projections?
So we're new here. We're still kind of new here. And when I started, so a lot of this is historical trends. So I was looking back at what previously was being spent, was happening. So that's part of what I was looking at, was what historically was happening. And we meet all the time, you know, for budgets, and we talk about what's going to be more efficient. I think we've done a lot with the staffing as far as scheduling and who do we need, where do we need them. Efficiency with the staff is a big thing. We've found other ways to be more efficient. I know everybody hates me for taking away their personal printers, but that saved a lot of money. And ink as well. We've had retirees that have been here a while, so we've had some breakage with that. The health insurance didn't go up at the rates that it was expected to go up by, so I think maybe I used like 6% before. So 6% on $12 million compared to 2% on $12 million at a lower rate to begin with is a lot of it. I'm just trying to think without looking at it like right in front of me.
One of the big things also is we were projecting money coming out of COVID. So we spent a lot less than 1 year, and we also got money. Like they paid for the lunches.
That's true.
They aided transportation.
Yeah.
We didn't have subs for 9 months. Every time we were remote, we didn't have subs. So that 18 months is kind of every time we look back, we got to remember that. You got to kind of put that in bold, that
right.
What was really happening there with staffing, with spending, with fuel. We can't look back and go, oh, we were so efficient then. Wait a second, we had half the bus runs, didn't heat the buildings as much, so we got to constantly keep that in the back of our mind, not only with the budget, but when we look at our state scores and our I-ready and everything. That's going to be an anomaly. We got to keep it on.
So a couple other things. The energy performance contract going forward is supposed to save us money, you know, with energy savings. Shoot, I just thought of a few other things.
I don't know, did the change of assessment affect us or no?
It just affects the tax rate, and it lowered the tax rate. The last time, I think the true value was around $15, which is pretty good.
So it's a combination.
A lot of things, like the TRS rate and the ERS rate are pretty low compared to where they used to be. It was in the 16% for ERS just a few years ago, and now it's down at, 11 or 13. So there's a variety of things that have changed since then. Like I said, it's only one point in time that I'm looking at. But there's several things included in that aren't going to change that much. But I definitely have to say the health insurance, us being more efficient, and just tightening up on things. Because we're all new, we have different perspectives on a lot of things. And different ways of doing them that are cheaper.
Yes, hi. I just want to clarify, and I think you had
You talked a little bit about the transportation. In 2022, you have 3.8 here in terms of expenditure, and then yes, actual. Yep. Actual and estimated puts us up to 5 million. So you said that it was 3.8, but we had savings because we had fewer bus runs. Okay. Yes. I mean that was right. Mm-hmm. So when we estimate, ultimately 1.2 million more for pupil transportation, what's that based on? What's that increase based on? So part of it's based on the 3 contractors that we work with and what I'm guessing the CPI will be next year. So we take what we're spending about right now, and then I increased it. And then for student, I put an estimate in there of what I believe the increase might be. I have absolutely no idea what they're going to come back with on the request for a proposal, or a different company may come in and make an offer on that. Okay, so that largely just reflects then that 6% of that CPI increase that you're talking about, right? But do we anticipate that there's going to be any increase in the number of bus drivers? In other words, if we had fewer expenditures because we have fewer runs on the one hand, we don't suddenly anticipate that there's going to be a groundswell of people driving buses, right? This is going to be a problem that probably continues for a few years. This is a current economic trend that we're looking at. So how does that reflect? So we're going into a request for a proposal for all of our general runs. So we're putting it out there that we want pricing for that. So if you were running a company, what price would you give me to hire bus drivers to fulfill the operation? You know what I mean? I can't give away my hand here. We're negotiating. Well, I understand an estimate's an estimate, and I'm just saying if we're probably going to continue to see those trends continue of not having enough bus runs, right? You don't have a crystal ball, but if we don't. Right, but I do know that there are districts that have enough bus drivers for their runs. So why don't we? Maybe it's the price we're paying. Could be anything. But there are districts that have drivers where they don't need to double every day. Are they districts that own their own fleets? No.
Jane, just to clarify, when you budget, do you budget based on a deficit or an anticipated deficit in service provision? Or do we have to budget based on what we need and what we're gonna, like if you need these runs, and so you're gonna need to,
right, so what I put in the budget is if we're getting all of what we're contracted to get.
Right, and what we need for you're not budgeting for something more than we need, you're budgeting for what we need for the runs that we have.
For the runs that we're contracted to have.
Yes.
But we do have things that come up. So currently, we're saving because we're doubling, but we did add a route for homeless children that is costing us $700 a day. Not anticipated.
Nope.
So
yep.
I could lower it, but then I'd be short. So it's all in there. As long as I get the total close, I'm good.
Are we able to talk about some of, I know we have 4 contracts with the busing company, but are there flexible costs in there? Like, is fuel a flexible, do we absorb the extra expense because of higher fuel costs, or is that part of the contract?
So we have contracts with 4 vendors, I should say. There's multiple contracts. There's one contract run with Tanchi, okay? There's multiple different contracts with Cooksaki and Lizette. And then there's one contract with First Student that covers multiple routes. So with the first student and Lizette, there's fuel associated with that. So what the district does is we buy it at state contract price, and then it's delivered at their location. And then we keep track of what they're using. We pay the bill, but it's part of the contract, so we do get state aid on the fuel that we pay. But Cooksaki doesn't have that fuel, so they have to suck up the difference. So, and a few of the vendors, the contractors, have mentioned rebidding some of their runs because it's not paying the bills. So we might have a few others going out to bid too. Good. Thank you.
We'll move into board member remarks. Any board member wishing to speak? Ms. Barringer, you might as well.
I just wanted to first thank all the parents and the community members who took their time to attend today and share their perspectives. And I can't say enough how often it happens and how appreciative I know I am, and I think many of us are, hearing directly from you at the meetings. I know it's a lot to leave and not be home and comfortable nights, but it really is so wonderful, and you're heard. I want to do a shout out to the elementary students that were in attendance. They sat through and were perfect attendees in a meeting that is often really difficult for adults to sit through. So I just want to thank you all for making that extra effort and being here. And specifically, if somebody's coming and it takes a lot to get here and then to stay, I thank you. I just, over and over, I can't say thank you enough. Congratulations to the Science Olympiad team. When I heard about their incredible efforts and everything that's been happening, it's amazing. That's such a new team, and to know where they have gotten in such a short period of time, I just want to scream it from the rooftops how wonderful that is, because, and especially to the members who were here today and the ones that have helped to propel this team to a national ranking, wow. That's all I can say. In regards to the additional security officers, this is a perspective that is not lost on this board, and we have been discussing that issue in particular for my entire tenure. We have had meetings with law enforcement specifically to talk about this. We have, it's something that is important, and I agree that security and protection of our children, number one. You have to. But I, for one, would be very interested in seeing a proposal that brought the district 5 additional security members with law enforcement experience similar to our existing SRO. Because the last time I remember, the line in our budget for that line item was nearly half of the $170,000 estimate that was proposed, and that's just for one person. So I would love to see an estimate that brought 5 people to the table with law enforcement experience with our students at $170,000. That seems like a miracle budget to me. And then just to let everybody know about BOCES, we are continuing. I am the representative from Saugerties to the Ulster BOCES board, and we are continuing to move forward with the search for the new BOCES superintendent with the upcoming retirement for Dr. Chuck Corey. He's leaving at the end of this month. It's resulted in a number of special meetings and extra time, similar to what we as a board experienced when we hired our current superintendent. And just want to let you know that advertisements are expected to be released for that position in the next week or so. So hopefully we'll start seeing some movement on that. That's it for me.
So I just wanted to say that I attended the Cahill 5th and 6th grade band and chorus concert a couple weeks ago, and during the day, and it was really exciting to see, as Mr. Spear would say, the enthusiasm of the kids performing. They did a great job, and all the kids in the audience, really enjoyed seeing, their fellow students up there performing. performing as well. I also would like to congratulate the Scholar athletes, Science Olympiad teams, the artists that were represented here tonight, and there's, and to really all the students who are trying to exceed at their academics and any other extracurricular activities and the work that they're doing outside of school. It takes a lot of dedication and a lot of hard work, but just seeing these students succeed, it's really great to see the district. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Giancarlo, Ms. Gianfranco, and thank her for presenting and hosting us this evening. There seems to be a lot of good things here happening at the Moore School this year. And also would like to thank the community for coming out and sharing their perspective with the board.
Yep, just add real quick, thank Ms. Stefano. I think it's great to see the kids have a little bit different venue that has been available in the past. And what I've seen over my time on the board, like every year there seems to be something new for somebody to plug into, which is fantastic. And especially want to thank the parents, Ms. Summers and Ms. Storm for coming out and sharing what's clearly a difficult conversation, which needs to be had. And we hear it. Thank you.
It's going out of line? I guess so.
One second.
10 seconds. Tonight's been an emotional roller coaster. I too, first and foremost, would like to thank the parents for coming and advocating for their kids and bearing their souls. It's a pretty hard thing to do in front of people you really don't know. So thank you. Just a couple things. Thank you for hosting us tonight. We always feel welcome when we come to Morse, and our presenters tonight, great things are happening here. It's always good to see. Ms. Stefano, more accolades to you. You can buy Science Olympiad shirts to support them, so I think you should. I mentioned money in there, it's going static, sorry. It's actually, it's a really good price for the shirt compared to what you're going to pay elsewhere, so you should definitely support them. Best of luck in your upcoming meets. I'm sure you'll do well. I'm sure these kids present well and they're fabulous. Last two things, the weather's changing. Kids are walking on the roads to walk home. There's puddles, there's ice. Please slow down. I say this every year about buses, please give yourself extra time in the morning so, your rush doesn't become a lifestyle. And lastly, we live in such a great community where community members constantly give back. Mr. Bono, thank you for coming again. He could be done with this. Instead, he's giving up his Tuesday night to come here and sit with us. It's appreciated. But in the fiscal, more money is not going in. Please support our local shops and vendors and restaurants. I know it's real easy to just click on your phone and order something and have it delivered to your house, but these people definitely do give back, not only to the schools, but also to the community. So please support them wherever you can. Happy New Year, and thank you.
I had the great opportunity of being part of the literacy fair that was held at Saugerties over 2 nights. One of our literacy specialists, Amanda Kovacs, ran it. It was a wonderful event. The kids were so excited. Every child got to attend 2 different rooms where holiday and winter books were read, and when they were done, they either got to make an ornament or a bookmark or some other craft, and they were great books. I got to read. It was wonderful. I had between pre-K students and 5th grade students, and it was just really fun. I hope to see that more throughout the district. My husband joined us. He was a special guest at the end of the night, and it was just really a fun night. And I know Mrs. Kovacs put a lot of time into it, and she had lots of volunteers that helped. but I really just want to say what a wonderful night that was. Quickly, without being too repetitive, we have so much to celebrate. Kudos to the Mahal students, the music and art students, the Olympiads. We have so much going on with our students in this district, and it's so wonderful to see. Thank you to the Morris family, Principal Jean Greco. It was a wonderful night, a lovely presentation. Your student government spoke so wonderfully. I thank, I know her as Miss A and Miss Dixon, who are your student government faculty that work with them, and also to the PTA, because I believe there's some lovely little treats in our executive session room, so I'll thank you ahead of time for whatever lovely treats are in there. I'm going to say two things about our parents that spoke tonight. First, Mr. Bono, I totally agree with you on the safety thing. Thank you for coming in. And I think to Chris's point is when I know that up in Catskill, the people they've hired are retired people, so they're not hiring people that need benefits and all those additional things. It's a straight out, this is what you make per hour. So I think that's why our numbers might be lower. Where our SRO right now, I think we share the cost with the village, and that's all health benefits and a full-time employee. So it's really important, and I hope that we can move forward towards that. And to the parents that spoke, you know, I'm the former director of special ed. I've been on the board for 6 years, and I know it does take parents a lot to get up and speak in front of us. They don't know our backgrounds, they don't know what we know. And I speak wholeheartedly for those children. I always work 110% for them and still support them. However, we'll tell you, even 6 years ago, nurses are one of the hardest things to come by, especially when you're looking for nurses that need feeding experience or G-tube experience, or swallowing. I would bet that our special ed department has worked really hard to get those nurses, and when there's no one out there, there's just nothing that we can do. And I lived it, and I worked with other parents, like these parents that spoke tonight. When there's no one out there, there's just nothing you can't do. You can't have a child in that requires a 1-to-1 aide or a nurse come in without that person. It's a liability, and we don't want anything to happen to our students. And I guess that's where I'll end it for tonight. Thank you all for coming.
Probably fast. Everybody touched on everything that I had on my list, but I want to start off with thanking everybody who spoke. There's no real direct line from us to the community if you're not coming and speaking like that. So I just want to encourage that, and I hope we can keep different topics. Hopefully we can address what was spoken about, and we can continue to improve the district for everybody. Thank everybody here at Morris for hosting us. And then just on a little bit more lighthearted note, there were a lot of new Letterman jackets this month. And I just want to congratulate all those athletes who got their letters for the first time. I thought it was great to see.
Really? Is there anything left? Just to echo, and I think it is important, yes, congratulations to all of our athletes, musicians, artists, Olympiad members. Thank you, Ms. Stefino. And please thank the students that joined us. I didn't catch their names. And thank you, Ms. Jean Greco, and special thanks to Sasha, Eve, Harper, and Cameron. Nice to see that you stuck around, Cam. Very good. Appreciate that. And I appreciate, as always, our community members that bring forth important things that we need to think about and consider and discuss as a board. So thank you to Ms. Summers, Ms. Storm, and Mr. Bono. I will just say, as one small piece of the conversation that probably will take place and continue to take place regarding security and SROs and things along those lines. As we go forward, it'll be really important for us to be clear and distinguish between an SRO and a security officer. They're two very distinctly different things. But it's an important concept. You are spot on, and again, I appreciate you bringing forward that discussion. I'd like to remind everybody here, but also anybody that's watching as well, that as joyous as the holidays are, for a large number of our families and students, they're extremely challenging, extremely difficult. So that if any of us, and I know that this message goes out from our schools, I know that it does, But I just want to reiterate that if any of us, any of you are aware of families that are in need, there's always a resource at your local school, someone that you can reach out to share some information discreetly about a family that may need some assistance. Our school nurses, our social workers, there's someone that you trust that you can reach out to and share that information, so that the kind of resources that really are in great abundance around the holidays, because you have such an extraordinary and giving community, that the people that need them are put in contact with those resources. And finally, I would just like to wish, yes, all students, families, faculty, staff, my fellow board members, a happy holidays and a happy new year. Thank you.
Board President's remarks. Well, I'm not sure there's anything left to say, but I will attempt to say something. Thank you to our athletes, our science Olympians. It's great to hear positive news. It really is. And I think it's been a trend since Mr. Reinhardt has come on that we're hearing so much about education, so much progress. I think we have new crew shirts for our AV team that we're modeled here tonight. A lot of good stuff, and yet it was a tough meeting to hear our special parents talk. I've worked in special ed more than half my life. It's one of the things that prompted me to come on to the Board of Education. The law calls for a free and appropriate public education. It doesn't call for an ideal education, and that sometimes gets lost in the bureaucracy of special ed. There's all kinds of hoops to jump through with New York State regulations, what the district can and can't do. But I know this department bends over backwards to try to accommodate things, but it might not seem like that to a parent who doesn't have that first showing up. When I first came on the board, the special ed graduation rate was around 20%. It's more than double that now, and it's proof of the hard work that goes on in that department. We have some really qualified individuals, yet we hear the frustration of these parents, and I thank them for coming out tonight. Mr. Bono, I would love to get more security for our district, and we will consider that. We will see what the next safety meeting will be thrown out. We'll be in January, so we hope to see you there. I think the general state of the district is in good shape. It's really good shape. I know the same board is available for weddings and parties to do budget presentations if anyone's interested. That budget meeting was greatly appreciated. And thank you, Mr. Greco, for your staff coming out, your students. Cameron, on behalf of the Board of Ed, your student body there has a free homework pass. Whatever night of the week you want, but not it expires on Christmas Eve. Thanks. We're going to take a short 5-minute break and then we convene.
Welcome back. It's good to see everyone. I'm going to talk and give some updates on the macro level of curriculum and instruction of everything that Mrs. Gian Greco said that's happening in the building level. So in the next slide, this from the summer, go back that one.
It's Jimi Hendrix's birthday today.
Oh, there we go. Yes, he's with us. So we've been beginning with this photo from our June graduation, and I've been showing this photo, immediately prompting in all of our work with our administrators to remind them that our kindergartners are graduating in 2035. They will be 28-ish and in the workforce in 2045. So our work is not done on graduation day. Our work needs to prepare our students to be in the workforce in 2045. So to that end, again, the word is intentional. I've been working with the administrative staff on intentional professional learning for them as leaders to become lead learners and facilitate learning for all, their entire staff. All of our work this year is driven by our PD plan that's everywhere. And with our administrators, we began with the Mid-Hudson Leadership Institute in June. Then we had our own retreat and bookends of the summer, which was pretty intensive. Included everything from data to learning about the adult learner. I'm going to go into it a little bit more. And then intentional PD for teachers with our not one-shot deals, not just bringing somebody in who gives us a good laugh, makes us feel good, and then leaves, but sustained coaching through our instructional coaches so that we are constantly supported in setting our learning goals, and everything is based on data and research-based, evidence-based learning for students that promotes academic achievement. So it's always really important to remember why we're doing this. And so tonight, what's a little unusual is I'm going to talk quickly. I was prompted by my colleagues to be quick because it's late. So I'm going to do the very best I can.
Thank you very much.
But our why for working with our administrators and working with our teachers, in a nutshell, is when our administrators and our teachers are learning and are healthy, our students are learning and they're healthy, and the research supports that. And this, many of our administrators were very much inspired by the work of Tom Murray in Personal Authentic Learning, where he says, you need to come back to your why. So over the summer, you can keep going, we did a lot of work in giving our administrators practical skills so they could turnkey things with their faculties, because the days of facilitating a faculty meeting that you could just put in an email, that's not current, it's not research-based, it's not efficient of time, and we have a dynamic administrative team right now who is capable, and they are doing this amazing work. And I was just so proud listening to all the turnkey things that Mrs. Gian Greco did. So we did a lot of visioning, and we did the visioning with a portrait of a graduate. And the portrait of a graduate, many districts do this. And it's the idea of who do we want our Sawyer graduate to be? What are they going to be doing? What are they leaving with? How will they be prepared in 2045? So we do this activity. It's a lot of fun. You know, what are they thinking? What are they hearing? Where are they going on their feet? It's the whole student body. So I did it with the administration did it with their teachers, and then some of our teachers are doing it with their students, which is pretty cool too. Another component and pillar that we have turnkeyed is this philosophy of literacy. I keep speaking about it. It's been dynamic for our teachers to work with and has had a profound ripple effect. This was created by the lead teachers here at Saugerties, and many of our schools are utilizing it in their faculty PD slices. So over the summer and even now, a lot of the work that was done in the PD slices with our administrators is sometimes you only have 40 minutes with teachers, or an hour, or a 2-minute hallway conversation. How can you be intentional in your planning with your agendas? How can you be intentional with utilizing our Saugerties vision and goal? The power of why, explaining why. All students, no matter the age, and adults, why are we doing this? Why are you making us sit in the auditorium? Also setting norms and celebrations and small wins. And we, like I said, SMART goals and theory of action. Theory of action are those if-then statements. And here is opening day. You can see Mr. Reed turnkey the portrait of a graduate. So here is the high school and junior high doing this work. Keep going. And then, if I want sustained professional development, I work in conjunction with Superintendent Reinhardt and my incredible colleagues in following up. So on September 14th, it was a follow-up of, so how did opening day go? We set the expectation that you were going to be lead learners. How did it go? What did you do? And here they were turnkeying literacy, the philosophy of literacy, and also our elementary schools had work to do in building community. So on November 8th, we had our superintendent's conference day, which was amazing. While I am biased, the feedback from our Google form was amazing, and also the individual workshop takeaways, the evidence of that was really powerful. We utilized our own administrative team. We utilized our interns. I have had Trish Piptone be my intern, and right now Chelsea DeFino is my intern, and she and I presented at the secondary level together. The instructional coaches presented at the elementary level. Jess Armstrong, in conjunction with the BOCES math content specialist, facilitated the math portion, and our special education department partnered with our attorneys and partnered together to facilitate sessions that were meaningful. And the most unusual and really cool thing that we did was our students that are doing this incredible work of project-based learning and being civic-minded and really propelling a student voice, such as our students at Cahill. There's a club called Students for Action and Change. They came and shared at the superintendent's conference day. And when they came in, many folks weren't expecting that. And it was powerful to have students share how this is what they want to do. They're going to do it. And there really aren't any excuses. Keep going. So here you can see Chelsea is talking to the students of change. Sue McManical is their club leader for that. You can keep going. The other really neat thing that we did is we're trying to build capacity of our teachers to become leaders. So in the second session of the day, we did something called Spark Talks. It's kind of made up. but here's the idea. It's a riff on an ed camp. An ed camp is informal and very loose. What we did was I solicited teacher leaders who I knew were doing authentic project-based learning. Because the goal is we want our students to be engaged, we want them to be present, and we want them to be thinking at a very high level of what we need in 2045. So we had a dozen teachers do Spark Talks. So the way it worked was every 15 minutes, teachers could choose who they wanted to go in here. And they were all different projects, and then on the right, I invited 2 Ulster BOCES teachers who I've worked with in the past who teach at P-TECH, so that our teachers could hear super high-level project-based learning, because at P-TECH, that's all they did. And that was pretty incredible and inspiring. And here at the elementary level, you can see our instructional coaches did an amazing job of doing hands-on learning to teach our teachers more strategies for literacy across content areas. We know we need work in comprehension, we know we need work in vocabulary, we know we need work in geometry based on the iReady data. Okay, so I keep mentioning this 2045, and the reason why is when you look at what employers are seeking, they're not seeking passive learners. They're seeking employees that will come and be creative, be solution oriented. Also, according to all these articles, they want employees who care about diversity, who care about empathy, who are fluent in global literacy, financial literacy, data literacy. So any passive learning is just not going to cut it. And here are some more examples of how we took that idea and said, okay, if we refined the portrait of the graduate. So now knowing that, according to those Forbes articles, this is what we need to do, let's go back to that portrait of a graduate. What's missing? What do we need to do? Now, here's the way the universe worked in a miraculous way. So we know that project-based learning is a connective tissue for engagement if it's done well. If there are rubrics for students to have a say, to give student feedback, to reflect upon their experience. If it's a seat in a cup or just build a log home, that's an activity. That is not authentic project-based learning. If there's not an authentic launch and an authentic student assessment, that's weak. So all of the project-based learning that we're talking about is what New York State wants us to do. And it's connected to the standards. When you look at them, it's connected to the seal of biliteracy. When our students do their presentations, it's connected to the seal of civic readiness, which Saugerties is approved for, and we are working on that. Mr. Reed said that we're probably estimating somewhere around 15-ish graduates to have that seal, which is amazing. So it's really a beautiful connective tissue to so many things, and the serendipitous thing that happened was simultaneously of planning this day, Sawyer's Motors said, hey, we'd like to facilitate with awarding some money, some grant money. So our administrative team said, hey, why don't we do a call for proposals in project-based learning, and let's take our philosophy of literacy and state that these projects need to be diverse, joyful, and innovative, because our North Star is the philosophy of literacy, and that's what we want. So that's what we did. We had that amazing concert, and the awards were given. Dan, do you want to, Dr. Ersig, do you want to speak about this?
Yes, so just very briefly, right, so Saugerties Women's Foundation, we live in a great community. We donated $15,000 to various efforts in our school district, two being the free store and the backpack program through the Key Club. And then through our proposals, additional funds were donated to the staff members that you see above you. So Ms. Janetti is doing a project with robots, Mr. Cooper from our business department, logo creation from the business department. The junior high team is looking to take their students to the museum in New York City for the Jewish Heritage Museum that ties in with the book that they're reading in class, and with the overall theme of what love can do and what hate can do. Met with them today to kind of go over. Ms. Mulford over at Ricardi is looking to plant pollinator gardens. Right now, her students are looking at the amount of sun that they like for each area and where the best location to actually plant the garden is. So she's tying it into that, along with writing. And then ultimately, we'll come up with the garden. Ms. Stefano, who I feel like we talk about every meeting, is putting forth the makerspace, and then our very own Ms. Hayes over there to enhance the Easter Film Festival.
Okay. So kudos to all of them. The next slide is a picture of Marin Musgraves and Denise Ortlieb, who have really spearheaded the Score store, and certainly to your point, Mr. Ball is being utilized this time of year. Also want to give, I'm wrapping up, I did this quick. I want to give huge kudos. Not only are we building capacity here in district, but we are sending our folks out to share their very best learning. So kudos to Dr. Jen Schlaber and Amanda Kovac, who presented at the New York State Literacy Association representing Saugerties. Kudos to Chelsea DeFino, presented at Staney's, which is the New York State Science. Peter Omora will be presenting at Hudson Valley Mohawk Regional Math Conference, and last spring our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program presented. There were 5 of us at the Mid-Hudson Leadership Institute. This is a culture of learning we support, and we are going to continue to support. And lastly, the last slide, just in wrapping up, is something near and dear to my heart, because for 6 years in my previous position, I was always trying to get the assistant superintendents to go to each other's school districts to have authentic conversations about learning, and it's vulnerable bringing other districts in. So when they said, who wants to do it, I said, Saugerties will. So in November, at the end of November, the assistant superintendents and deputy superintendents in the county came to Saugerties. We had our meeting in the library, but they toured, and Mr. Reed, Mrs. Vale did a beautiful job giving a tour. They saw things like our beautiful greenhouse. They went and visited Ms. Hayes and Mr. Wickham's classroom, the Score store, and again, those students need their own bus from Cahill because they presented for the 5th time. They presented at Kiwanis, they presented to you, they presented at Superintendent's Day, and then they presented to all the assistant superintendents. So I was really proud of Saugerties. It was great at the end of the day to feel like from all of our colleagues that, wow, we have some amazing bright spots. I'm done. How long was that?
Quick.
Perfect. Quick.
Right answer.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I'll entertain a motion for a new sound system. I'll entertain a motion for item K1, resignations. Moved by Mr. Paulson, is there a second? Ms. Belrosa, discussion. I just want to recognize we have Ms. Deborah Kikilo on here. She's number item H. She served 42 years of service with the school district. I'm dating myself because I worked with her mom, who was also a teacher in Kingston and Chambers. So not only do I recognize her service, we appreciate it, but I feel really old right now. So, any other discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion for items K2, 3, and 4.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gage, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mooney. Discussion?
Oh,
Madam
wait, just one thing. I think I have to abstain from this vote.
Okay. So you can, we'll do a roll call vote.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just realized there's a name on there. I went, oh, wait a minute. I think I have to abstain.
Okay.
I'm sorry, which way was it?
K, 2, 3, and 4. She's a small. Get a roll call vote.
Robert Jones,
Yes.
James Mooney,
Yes.
William Ball,
Yes.
Mr. Barringer,
Abstain?
Christine Villarosa,
Yes.
Susan Gage,
Yes.
Ray McClary,
Yes.
Scott Polson,
Yes.
motion carried. 6 yes, 1 abstain.
And we'd like to congratulate Alexandria Jameson. She was on K4, who was given tenure tonight. Mr. Ersick has a certificate for her, but I don't believe she's here, so we'll get that for her. Personnel, non-instructional, I'll entertain a motion for item L 1, 2, and 3. Moved by Mr. Mooney, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paulson. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Business office recommendations, I'll entertain a motion for items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
So
Moved by Mr. Mooney, is there a second? Second by Ms. Bellarosa. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Board action discussion items, I'll entertain a motion for items N 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gage. Is there a second? Mr. Clary. Discussion. None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Board action discussion items, item 01. This is really a discussion about, brought up from our previous board, about changing the polling places for elections from one central polling place to keeping the way they are, and whether we should keep the hours from 6 to 9.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I think anytime you make it more difficult for people to vote, there's an adverse effect. And I know it might cost us a little bit more to have additional polling places, but my opinion would be that it hasn't changed. I think make it as easy as possible for people to come out and vote so they can truly be heard. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm going to say that I echo and I agree with Jim. We're a public service. We serve the public, and in as much as a vote is their opportunity to come out and say they support what the district is doing, the easier that is for them to do so. Reflects, to me, my opinion, a respect for those individuals, those taxpayers, and those voters of the district.
Is there an estimate of cost saving if you want to work this?
Is there a question, do we ever do an exit poll? For the voter to say whether they would prefer to have a central place versus in, the individual places? Because, I mean, if you look at...
We had an exit poll last year, and I'm not sure if that was the question. Yeah,
But
it
if we
wasn't.
have that as
It
one
is.
question,
I don't,
we could
We'll have to
get...
pull that information, because it was a question on there.
Was there?
Okay, not sure.
So it'd be helpful to know what the answer for that was.
So if, Mr. Ursi, if you could pull that, then we can continue this discussion at the next board meeting?
Yeah,
That
that
was
would be great.
another discussion item. All right, anyone else? We're good with going on to next month. All right, committee reports, audit committee?
No report.
Okay, facilities, I think we heard from the capital project. Do we need to do anything else, Mr. Reed?
No, No, the next meeting is January 4th to 4:30. 4:35. Just kidding, 5:11.
Policy. I missed the meeting due to finally getting COVID, 2 years of waiting. And the last I spoke with Dan, he said that we're working on getting committees at the school level, secondary and then junior, senior high. Do you know if we have any takers yet?
You met with somebody who's doing their internship that would like to take over that committee?
Yes, for the dress code. I met with her today. We're going to have some things I can meet with. We're going to go in 2 different routes, like a secondary committee and an elementary committee, and merge them together. So we're hoping to have the first meeting in January.
And are they going to plan on coming to the regular policy committee meeting? I'm hoping.
Yeah, I get the
Great. Public recognition, anybody left from the public wishing to speak? Please approach the podium. None being heard, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Moody, is there a second? Second by Mr. Ball. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will be coming out of the executive session to adjourn the meeting. We don't anticipate voting on any items. Coming out.
You like?
My son and last name was Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Scott? Christine is a second. Vote. Merry Christmas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Aye.